not the direction that we were going to actually kick the podcast off on, but we got talking like the second you walked in the door, and you said something really interesting, which our eyes were like, let's sit down and talk about this. You talked about business being a lineup of failures for you, and we're really open about that. Can we start there and talk about what kind of failures you've experienced in business and how that's led you to do what you do now?
Oh, of course. Well, first of all, the biggest failure of my life is what led me to discovering the 5-second rule, which is the basis of my entire media business. It was the first book I put out. I hit rock bottom in 2008. I'm a lot older than you two. I'm like your older, saucier sister. You probably think that yes, you better have your seatbelts on because here we go.
This is going to be a ride.
No, I hit rock bottom. My husband's restaurant business was failing and I had been laid off. The recession hit the United States and I found myself at the age of 41 with 3 kids under the age of 10, unemployed and nearly $1 million in debt.
Wow.
We had secured the restaurant business by cashing out our life savings, the kids' college plans. We had taken out a home equity line because, hell, that's free money. We had cashed out our credit cards. We had shoved it all in, and the first location had done dynamite, and the next 2 were complete dogs. And when failure hit, because I never dreamt that at 41 I would be facing bankruptcy, divorce, and a drinking problem. So when failure hit, I faced my issues like a lot of high-functioning people do, and that is by screaming at my husband and blaming everything on him and drinking myself into the ground, avoiding my problems and hiding from my friends. That's basically what I did. That does not sound like the Mel Robbins you know. And I knew what to do. And this is the kind of central thesis of the work that I'm putting out into the world and the things that I'm sharing. We all know what we need to do. We don't have a fucking clue how to make ourselves do it. Mm-hmm. When you're afraid, when you're anxious, when you're beaten down, when you're doubting yourself, when you're jealous, when you're insecure, those states, whether they're emotional or mental, they drag you down. And so at the age of 41, I would wake up every morning, you two, and I would be pinned to my bed by anxiety. It was like a gravity blanket that was just pinning me down. And I would stare at the ceiling and I would think about my problems and I would think about what a failure I was. And I felt like the world's worst mom. And we lived in this really nice suburb outside of Boston. And so everywhere I looked, I saw people who were successful and people who had nice cars. And I could not pay for groceries. I had to ask my father to pay for our mortgage while we were literally trying to figure out what to do. And that was the moment that I discovered the 5-second rule by mistake. By mistake, you two. So I was a lawyer. I then got into kind of the first .com wave. I never intended to become a motivational speaker. I never thought about writing a book. I had to save my own ass because I realized nobody was going to come and do this for me. And every night I would sit there and I would give myself a pep talk. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like this in your life where you're like, all right, that's it. Tomorrow morning, I am changing. Tomorrow morning, I'm getting out of bed. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to stop drinking. I'm not going to be a bitch to my husband. I'm going to look for a job. I'm going to tell my friends the truth about what's going on. I am the new Mel. And then the next morning I'd wake up and the old, shitty, drunk, angry, bitchy Mel would still be there. And I would continue to feel stuck. And then one night, as I was sitting there giving myself this talk that I gotta change, I saw this rocket launch at the end of a commercial. And I thought, that's it. That's the secret. Tomorrow morning, when the alarm goes off, instead of lying there and letting that anxiety and fear consume me, I'm gonna launch myself out of bed like a rocket. I'm gonna move so fast that I'm not going to be in that bed when that anxiety hits. Now, look, I'd had 4 Burma Manhattans that night, so it was probably the alcohol that gave me that idea because that is the dumbest thing that anybody has ever said in their entire life, right? Well, the next morning, for whatever reason, the alarm goes off, and I remembered the rocket launch, and I started counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I stood up, and that was the beginning. And I used it in secret for 3 years. to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push myself to take action, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, put myself in pause and not scream at Chris. And slowly but surely, one decision at a time, my whole life changed. I picked up the phone and networked until I got a job. I not stopped drinking entirely, but could stop after a glass of wine or a Manhattan instead of like drowning myself in it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I was pushing myself forward and exercising and telling the truth and working on my marriage. And then in 2011, somebody asked me if I would be willing to give a talk about career change because I had changed my career so many different times. And it was at a thing I had never heard of called TEDx. And it was one of the first TEDx conferences ever. So there was no real formal vetting process. And it was the first time I had ever stepped on a stage. Yes, I had been a criminal defense attorney, but it's very different to talk to a jury and a judge than to stand on a stage and stare out into an auditorium with a bunch of people with their arms crossed looking at you. I get out there. The speech is about changing your career, right? Getting out of your own way. It was not about the 5-second rule. In fact, I was not going to talk about it because telling people you can change your life by counting backwards from 5 sounds like the stupidest thing you've ever heard in your entire life. I had no idea why it worked. I was just using it in secret. So I start that speech. I basically have a 21-minute long panic attack on stage. If you look closely, you will see the neck rash that grows through the entire TED Talk. And at the very end, I forget how to end it. And I pause and I say, oh, there's this thing I do. I call it the 5-second rule. The moment you have an instinct to move, you got to move within 5 seconds before your brain kills it. I was so disassociated, you two, I gave out my email address on stage and then left the stage. A year passes. I go on with my life. I say, I'm never giving a speech again. That was the worst thing that ever happened to me. TEDx uploads it. I don't even know it's online. Another year goes by. So now it's 2013. And I'm starting to get messages on Facebook about some speech I gave in San Francisco. And I'm replying like, oh, were you there? That's how this all began. And then I gave speeches in 2013 for free at women's conferences. And then somebody came up to me at the end of the Pennsylvania Women's Conference and said, hey, I spoke in the morning and I loved your session. Can I ask you a question, speaker to speaker? And I said, sure. And they said, did you get your check yet? And I said, check? You got paid for that? And she looked at me in horror and said, you didn't? And I was like, no. I didn't even know that normal people got paid to stand. I thought you had to be a celebrity or a best-selling author. I did not know that this was a thing that you could do. And so I made myself a promise, and I want you to steal this. This is the first, you got the 5-second rule already. Here's advice number 2. If you don't know how to price yourself, steal this idea. Because I had no idea how to actually charge. And plus, keep in mind, in 2013, we still have liens on our house. We are still in severe debt. We are still barely making the ends meet. And so I also have major imposter syndrome about what my value would be. And so I promised myself this. The next time somebody calls me and asks me if I will speak, I will count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and put myself in pause. And then I'm going to say, what's your budget? And then I'm going to like back away from the phone so I don't say anything. And then when they say it, I'm going to put myself in pause again and go, normally I'm double.
Wow. Ooh, I like that. Can I just say, this has to be one of my favorite openings to a podcast we have ever freaking done.
Why?
Just because, like, I have been following you, Mel, for absolutely years, and I just love your authenticity and your willingness to be vulnerable and just put yourself out there and just say it how it is and be like, do you know what? My business started out of failure. I was here. I was drinking. And there's something powerful that happens when not only you own that, but people around you see you owning that. Because then I think it empowers everybody to feel like, oh my God, you know what? I'm going to own my shit a little bit more because it elevates you. And I just think like just opening straight out the gates, being like, you know, there is this perception that people who are successful were very, very intentional about it. And yes, don't get me wrong, I do think some people are very, very like intentional about where they got to. But then there are others that, like you're describing, they kind of have just kind of stumbled into it a way. Not without talent, not without showing up, not without putting in the work, but it wasn't necessarily, okay, I'm here and I'm at A and I'm aiming for C and I'm going to get there via B. Yours has gone via like all these different routes.
Completely.
And I think that's really refreshing to hear, because lots of people see this highlight reel, this overnight success, this story of like, you know, I'm just going to put this out there and make it happen, whereas yours wasn't like that. And I just love your honesty.
God. I don't think anyone's is like that, honestly. I think, here's the irony. I constantly am complimented for being authentic and vulnerable. And the fact is, it is so much fucking easier to just be honest. Like the pretending that we all go through, I think that's what creates anxiety, is feeling like you got to be somebody that you're not in order to fit in and be accepted. And the truth is, if you simply are who you are, you tell the truth about what you're experiencing, first of all, you're accepting yourself. And secondly, you're creating room for connection at a totally different level because you're not trying to prove anything.
Yeah.
You're just being who you are. And so I thank you for that. I feel like in the early days, succeeded in spite of myself. I didn't know what I was doing. But the one thing that I have to credit my mom and dad for, I come from a very long line of farmers and blue-collar workers, and I have one hell of a work ethic. I may not be the smartest. I'm definitely not the best looking. I'm not the most talented. I'm not the youngest. I'm not the tech savviest, but I will fucking outwork anybody if I want it. And that has been the thing that has literally built the foundation. And when you outwork everybody, I mean, hard work definitely beats talent when talent don't work hard, but you're going to make a lot of mistakes. But see, that's where the wisdom is. You don't learn shit when you're winning. You learn the wisdom that you need when you're losing. And I have lost a lot. And so, like, there's so many lessons from the business that I built, because what ended up happening is the first person that called me is the man who now manages my speaking business and has managed my speaking business since 2013, Darren Powell of Powell Speakers. And he called because his wife, Lori, had seen my thing on Facebook, and she said, get this woman. And he had been in the speaking business for 2 decades, and he called me, and I used my trick for the first time. This was the first call. And when I said, what's your budget? He said, $10,000. I nearly fell out of my chair.
You're like, double it?
I forgot that one. Are you kidding me? I literally had a heart attack. That was like 4 months of our mortgage, woman. Holy shit. Like, who pays? Well, this is what they pay? And so then I made the next really important decision by dumb luck. If you're worried about imposter syndrome, take all the money that you have and invest it in preparation. So I literally took $7,500 and I worked with a graphic designer to help me put up a pretty presentation. But in order to create the presentation, it forced me to think through, how am I going to explain this 5-second thing to people in a way that makes sense? And so that one speech is what skyrocketed me, because I got on that stage, and there are moments in your life where you are up to bat. And if you are ready to take the swing in that moment, the trajectory of your life changes. And because of the preparation that I put in, ironically, because I felt so unworthy of $10,000, which now I'm sitting here is a joke, because I make $100,000 to stand on a stage and talk for an hour. And that is in 7 years flat. And I say that and own it. And I think it's important for your female listenership to hear that, because we have not been taught as women to be proud of the fucking money we make. And we have been taught that ambition means you're a bitch, or ambition means that, you know, somehow you're not a nice person, or you aren't going to be a great partner, or you're not going to be an incredible mom. No, absolutely not. You have value, you have worth, and you should get paid for that shit.
I cannot agree more. And there's been so many times in my life where I've dealt with people saying I'm greedy or I'm this, I'm that, because I've been forthcoming about wanting to earn money and wanting to get paid and speak up for myself. I just want to go back to a couple of things that you'd said. The work ethic thing, I think we relate to so hard. We've been, in some shitty situations, and the two of us have looked at each other and said, you know what? We can work our way out of this because we're willing to put in the hours when most people want to go home.
Yeah.
We're willing to do that. So
I think as well, just leaning onto that, it's like the work is a numbers game. How many times can you get back up after failing is what will lead you to success.
Well, let me tell you
ability to
something.
Get up, get up, get
You
up.
want to know something? So here's the thing. Getting up after you fail, it's in your DNA. Resilience is in your DNA. When you were learning to walk, you fell an average of 17 times an hour. You didn't lay on the floor in your diapers and look at the ceiling and go, well, that's it, I quit. They said no. You got up over and over and over and over again. So life may tell you no, but if you give up, you're ultimately the one who said no. It's within you to keep going. And that's the secret.
I completely agree. And so I want to touch on, you talked about, was it 2013 or 2014 you gave that talk?
2014, I gave that talk.
2014. It's 2021 now, and you are arguably one of the most well-known motivational speakers in the world. You are incredible at what you do, and you're really leading the industry against a lot of people that have been in this industry for decades and decades and decades. What is it about you that has helped you get there in that time frame?
Number one, I focused on the thing that most people don't focus on. And actually two things that most speakers don't focus on. I think the vast majority of people that get into the speaking business are in it for the rush and the ego drive of being on stage. That's not why I'm in the business. In fact, that's the part of it that I hate. I mean, I enjoy it, but in terms of the scale of things, that is my least favorite part of it other than being away from my family. If you want to be good at this, you have to do all the stuff that nobody wants to do. You have to understand deal flow. So the audience doesn't book the speaker. It doesn't matter whether or not you get a standing ovation. You should get a standing ovation every time if you're good. That's the price of entry in my mind. If you're excellent, you take amazing care of the people behind the scenes that put the event on. You make those people feel like $1 million. So I just naturally started doing things that, I did because I had hardworking parents. When I landed at 11 o'clock at night, I texted the event planner and the person that booked me to let them know I had gotten there, I was at the hotel, things were great. In the morning, I text the event planner and the head person saying, hey, I'm grabbing coffee, I'll be there in 15 minutes, what can I get you? When I come in, I greet all of the tech people who normally the speakers walk by and ignore because I'm the main attraction. My job is to make sure I kill it on that stage and that their experience in putting on this event is stress-free, and I am the most delightful aspect of it. Then the other thing that I focused on, so that's it, like all the little stuff that makes the people who feel invisible want to work with you all the time. Because if they want to work with you, your name is going to spread through the entire place. Yeah. And every other speaker out there tends to focus on, is the speech really good? Well, it should be. You're getting paid. That's not what you focus on. Mm-hmm. And the second thing that I focus on is I have this, I'm in this because I am so driven to make an impact. I have fucked up so much of my life for so long. And I have so many mistakes that I have made, whether it was in dealing with my own anxiety or my kids' anxiety or shit that I did early in my marriage that I regret, or who I was during college or law school that I wish I had done differently, that I've done so much work to try to become a better person, to try to become kinder to myself, that if I can save anybody the heartache and the headache that I put myself through, that's the mission that I'm on, to make an impact in a real person's life. And so when I'm backstage, I center myself by saying, there is one person in that audience who will either not commit suicide or who will take this tool and help their child who's struggling with anxiety, or will take the 5-second rule and go to their brother who's got PTSD after doing a tour of duty and they will be able to make a meaningful difference in their life. And that is the one person I am going out there today and doing this for. And then I have that person in mind and I speak directly to them. And that intention to move someone is what comes through in the way that I behave on a stage.
And you're able to speak to that person because you've been in such dark situations yourself.
Yeah. And because the things that I'm sharing, whether it's the 5-second rule and now the high five habit and all the tools in between, are so sticky and easy that they spread like wildfire. And so I am also standing with the hundreds of thousands of people that have written to us. So I can stand on stages around the world and say with every fiber of my being that counting backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 will change your life, can save your life, it will interrupt any pattern, and believe it and know it's true. Because I've got 111 people that have written to me and said, I've not committed suicide because I counted backwards. I've lost 111 pounds using this thing. I had an entire wing of psychiatric care nurses show up on my daytime talk show. This was another failure, not this story, but I'll get to that failure in a minute. And say that of all the tools they give people when they are discharged from an inpatient stay, the 5-second rule is the most powerful because everybody can remember it.
Wow.
And tools only work when you use them.
I think that's the beauty of it. It's so simple yet so effective. Like I literally, when I was starting out my entrepreneurial career, our listeners know I was a chiropractor, and so coming into online space was so freaking daunting for me. I literally used to do your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My first Facebook Live, oh my God. I was so, like, I was freaking shaking. I was like, I've got to do this thing. I was like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, press it. And I just went on. I mean, I was on and off before anyone got on there, but you know, that's beside
it didn't
the point.
count, but
I did it.
You did it. Well, the genius of it is that, is when you start counting, you've already made the first decision. You've moved from hesitating and fear and doubt into action. You've gone from what psychologists call a bias towards thinking to a bias towards action. And the counting backwards requires you to focus. So instead of getting stuck in autopilot in the interior part of your brain, as soon as you start counting backwards, your prefrontal cortex engages and it starts focusing. So by the time you get to 1, you've created this micro moment where you can take control of what you think and do next. And that's why it works.
And do you feel a pressure? So you've been really honest about your journey and your failures and what's led you to be doing what you're doing now. Do you feel a pressure for where you're at now to make it look like life's perfect because you've got these tools and you've been doing it?
Oh my God, no.
Or are you still able to be really transparent about that?
I'm like, the only thing that I don't talk about are things that lawyers won't allow me to, or personal issues related to my kids or my husband's personal life. So there is so much that I would love to be talking about related to dating and young women and confidence and the culture of dating at this moment and how it's impacting young women, because I'm seeing it with my daughters. But it would infringe on their privacy.
Yeah.
And so I'm very conscientious about that. But, you know, in this book, The High Five Habit, I got my daughter's permission to talk about the fact that she's struggling with her weight and her health. I got my daughter's permission to talk about her imposter syndrome in music school as she is studying to be a singer-songwriter. I got my husband's permission to talk about how failing in the restaurant business sent him down a journey of feeling like a failure as a man because he wasn't providing. And the difference between his point of view about who he was and my point of view as a story that people can relate to, so I can explain how your own brain and the filter in your brain either shows you a world that reinforces something negative or shows you a world that reinforces where you want to go based on how you're training it.
Yeah, and I sometimes think that authenticity is what's missing from the motivational world, because I sometimes feel like some of the motivational speakers, because they are teaching from where they've been, it makes it seem like everything's perfect now because they've got tools, which is just unrealistic for all of us. And so I really admire, anyone that has an audience and has previously talked about stories and coming through them is still willing to say, and I'm still going through it. And it's something I always try and be conscious with our business too, because I know on the outside what it looks like, and in reality it's so different. And I always want people to know that.
Yeah, and I think I think you were going to touch on it as well. And what Natalie's point is, like you say, you've used these tools to get you somewhere, and then, oh my goodness, these tools actually didn't help me through this next part, or I had to shift, I had to change. So let's talk about your talk show, because I think that's like a good, we get to certain heights and sometimes we're like, oh, I don't want to, we expect of ourselves sometimes more than other people expect of us, but we expect everything we touch to then turn to gold or to be a success. And it can be really, really hard when that doesn't happen. So.
Oh yeah. And it didn't happen. So I get into the speaking business in 2014. As you so graciously pointed out, I became a sensation, the most booked female speaker in the world. I want to tell one more story because I think it's important for your female entrepreneurial listenership. So I had such a sense of I don't belong and I'm not good enough that I underpriced myself, and it really hurt my business. And I only found out because the chief HR officer at a publicly traded financial institution pulled me aside after an event. They had hired me for a CEO retreat. And it was me, and there were two other speakers at the event, and they were both men, both multiple New York Times bestselling authors that I deeply admired. And I showed up early at the event that day because I wanted to geek out like a fangirl in the back, which was probably a bad idea because it just gave me more fear about how I was going to do. I mean, these were big fucking names, okay? And I'm like in the back, year one, they're probably charging $20,000 an hour to give a speech, which at the time still for me, still leans on the house. It was like, what?
Yeah.
That's like a car. At the end of my speech, I was the closer. The head of HR pulled me aside from this publicly traded financial institution and said, I need to tell you something. We almost didn't hire you. And I said, why? And she said, you came so highly regarded that when we heard what you charged, we didn't think it was true.
Wow.
And then she said, and this is going to hurt, but I need to tell you. We paid the male speakers, in one case 3 times, and then the other case 4 times what we paid you. Damn. And you were 10 times better.
Wow.
And I have to thank her because my speaking, agent Darren had been saying, you need to raise your price. And I'm like, okay, I'm not worth it. I think we're going to lose business. And I went back and I said, all right, like double it at least, triple it, do what you need to do because I understand now.
Yeah.
And so it's important that you not underprice yourself because of your insecurity, because people won't believe you're actually good.
Yeah.
This has come up twice now, about how we value ourselves as females and the conversation around money. And I think it's like a subject worth just sitting on because it comes up a lot. And, Natalie and I are both from the UK. And as we kind of started off this conversation, and I believe it's the same in the US, like women talking about money is kind of like, how would you describe it?
I mean, especially where I'm from, you don't do it.
It's kind of like shameful.
Yeah,
it's kind
super
of like,
shameful.
oh, that's like so distasteful of her, And I personally am not a man, but I don't feel like that exists for men as much.
I think this is a generational pattern because women traditionally didn't make the money, so it wasn't theirs to talk about.
Yeah, potentially. And I'm curious, do you think that's going to start slowly eroding? I mean, Natalie and I are always on about unapologetically ambitious, and we always say hey, yeah, we want to earn money and we're here to earn money and we care and we want to give back and be in service and we want to make some dollars. So thank you.
Of course. This is what I'm saying to my daughters who are 23 and 20. Your life is your responsibility.
Yeah.
Your dreams are your responsibility. Don't you dare organize your life so that you are needing a partner to step in and provide for you. If you want something, figure out what it is and go make it happen. And if what you want is to eventually stay home and take care of your family, fabulous. Agreed. But also make sure you are an equal partner in everything that is happening financially, because what you're contributing at home is what is allowing your partner to go out into the world. My husband was a stay-at-home dad when the restaurant business failed.
Yeah.
I would not be successful if it wasn't for the contribution he made, which was a financial contribution, because if he wasn't the one there, I would have had to pay somebody a ton of money.
Yeah.
Not to mention how it supported me in the business. And so I agree. Like I don't know. I'm so far away from that because I so embrace my ambition at this point. And I think it's really important for women to do that, because I think it puts you in a very subservient position in your relationship when somebody else is responsible for providing everything financially.
What is your advice for women who struggle with that?
Stop struggling with it.
I like that. Count back from 5. Stop struggling with it. Let's go.
Yeah, like enough.
Yeah, I fully agree with you.
No.
So talk to us about the talk show.
Okay, so I end up getting approached by Sony Pictures Television to do a talk show. Here's another piece of advice. Say no.
You know?
Oh, and I'm going to give you one more, everybody. The most incredible thing that you could ever do is say no.
Like exercise saying no. No,
No, in business.
Oh.
Okay, let me tell you why.
Okay,
you ready? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to negotiating, what happens when you start to get into talking deal terms, for example, like this happened with Sony Pictures. They reached out to us. And at this point, we're on like Audible number 3. I'm the most booked female speaker in the world. We've got 500,000 students in online classes. We are slaying it and doing it on our terms. And so they reach out to us and they say, we'd love to talk to you about a daytime syndicated talk show. And so I grew up in Western Michigan. When I would come home from school, my mom would have on Oprah, Donahue, Montel. I grew up with the old school talk shows on. It had always been a dream of mine to host my own daytime talk show, be on TV, like amazing. So even though I was like, I'm like a digital person, like you two are, when it came in, I was secretly like, yeah, okay, yeah. Oh my God, they want me.
Right.
But I'm like, why would I do that? Like, why would I do a daytime syndicated talk show? And so we wrote back and said, no thanks. We got a lot going on, not interested. And they wrote back and said, wait, what?
Yeah.
You're not interested? Why aren't you interested? And I said, well, here's all the reason. I'll make more money than you'll pay me. I make more money doing what I do than you're ever going to pay me. I own everything that I do. I don't want to change or become a caricature of what I am. Like that, like I went, and they wrote back and were like, but would you still talk to us? And so like what happens is this in the deal. When you say no, there is this chemical thing that floods somebody's body, especially if it's a dude. The testosterone, the chase, the part of the brain that is attracted to something you can't have, it literally takes over. And because you said no, you become more desirable and more attractive. This also works for dating, everybody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
With men and women.
I was like, this sounds familiar.
Yes. So the more that you say no, the more you become something that somebody wants to get.
Your value somehow raises because you're less accessible.
Correct.
They're like, oh, she's saying no. Damn, like maybe we should try harder, raise our price, remove this dumb contract we just proposed her. And like, because a lot of times, how many people want a daytime talk show? Everybody. I want to fucking be Oprah. But like, how many people are saying no to deals? People are like, oh, Sony Pictures, I'm in. And then you know, all their that they've built is gone because they've given everything over to someone. And like, you know, we've obviously probably not to that standard yet, but like, of course we've had proposals and companies and production companies, and they're like, but we'll own everything. You're like, are you crazy? It's been too many years of this.
We recently said no to like a big opportunity, and we sat on it for a while. Like, we were like, should we? We were trying to work it out. Everything in me was like, no. And then when it came down to it, we were like, no.
Well, what ultimately
it was ultimately the best decision that we've made.
Course.
And I'm now like literally this week starting to see why I said no.
Yes. And, you know, even the thing we were talking about, I don't want to say what it was on a mic because I don't know if you're talking about it publicly. You should consider.
Our book?
No.
No.
Oh yeah.
The other thing,
Oh, okay.
you should consider doing it yourself. Because then you have control over it before it becomes a thing. And then the bigger fish buy the thing you created versus letting them surround with, what you're doing, the thing. So, I ultimately said yes because we were in LA. I think I was in LA for a speech. And so I'm like, well, I'll swing by and hear what you have to say. And they're like, why did you show up? And I said, well, I showed up to honor the dream that I had as a little girl. I want to find out actually what you're thinking and why you're interested. And what they said is, well, ever since Oprah left daytime, it's crap. Well, that's not the words they use. That's the word I use. It's celebrity promotion. It is hot breaking news topics, or it is such fake conflict that it is in service to nobody. And when I started to understand the demographic of a person who is still watching daytime television, it aligned directly with the impact that I'm out to make in the world, which is to make life-changing concepts, research, science accessible to the everyday person.
Right.
And when I realized that we could create a show potentially that could be a lifeline for folks that have been left behind by resources, that have been left behind by funding, that have been left behind when it comes to access to therapy or when it comes access to personal development, I thought this is something I'm going to go for. And it was absolutely something that I was destined to do.
I have a lot of people on the show that obviously I'm a big fan of, but Mel to me is next level because of what she does. She is truly a world-class transformational and inspirational expert. She's also, and for good reason, one of the most booked speakers in the world, right? Not even just women speakers, in the world.
Yeah, I almost never do women's events, actually.
You do like Chase Bank and JP Morgan,
Starbucks and Microsoft, and yeah.
Right. You kind of, you transcend. It doesn't matter if you're female, male, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. So I am very, very happy to have you on this podcast because you always give such great advice, nuggets of information that people can really implement and, take in their lives and elevate themselves. So with that being said, thank you for being here.
Wow. Well, thank you. And let me just say one thing about my comment that I don't really speak at women's events.
Yeah.
The reason why I said that specifically is because women speakers tend to get relegated as women speakers.
Yeah.
And so it's really important if being in the media business or being in the speaking business or being kind of out there with your message is important to you. If you want to reach a broader audience, resist the tractor beam pull to be typecast as somebody who speaks to women just because you're a woman.
I love that. Absolutely. And you know what's funny? We had Chelsea Handler on a little bit ago, and we talked about that as well. How some people, but that some people in her career also, it's not a women comic. It's not this. You're the same type of situation, but there are people who do that. They go down a path, or their content is very much women friendly.
Great. If that's what they want, fantastic. Just be super intentional. Because eventually the world will align with what's ever in your heart and your mind.
Right. But also what you speak about applies to
Everyone.
everybody. It's not just women. It's not just male. And I agree with you because then you kind of pigeonhole yourself. And in a business, you don't want to be doing that.
Unless you want to be doing it. You're very niche. So again, just be very clear about what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really, again, we didn't even start really. You gave some great advice
Well,
right there.
from a business standpoint, I can't tell you how many times I've either sat down and thought, should I really just focus my business on women? Or how many times I've been in meetings with potential partners that they've said, are you a women's brand? And I have thought about this very intentionally because we have a very, very large male following. And it's probably because I got my start with a TEDx talk. And then by being hired by corporations where the audiences are, a mix of men and women. And I have come to really realize that the things that I talk about are universal. I'm talking about habits. I'm talking about mindset. I'm talking about fulfillment. I'm talking about your emotional needs as a human being. I'm talking about relationships. And everybody needs to be working on and thinking about what they want in those areas of their life. And so everything I talk about, whether I'm explaining how to quiet your anxiety, men have anxiety too. And so I have made a very conscious decision to resist being a brand that is only for women.
My last question for you is one that I tend to always ask people I meet that I find to be incredibly wise and very good at helping others. I mean, you help hundreds of millions of people combined, which is, do you still struggle with all of the shit you talk about?
Oh my God.
Like,
yes. That's why I'm so fucking relatable. I do not have this stuff figured out. I am shoulder to shoulder with everybody. Whether it's issues going on with one of my kids, issues going on with one of me, just the other night, this is what happened. I self-published the audiobook.
Oh, okay.
And, which is amazing because I'm a smart motherfucker. I own my rights. And you should.
To this book as well.
No, this one I did a joint venture on the publishing, but I own all of the audio.
Amazing.
And because the 5-second rule is self-published, and it's the number one selling self-published audiobook in the history of audiobooks.
The book is self-published as well? Oh, smart.
And which is why I need to get into NFTs because I don't like it when somebody else has control. I, as an artist, want to own what I do. As a businesswoman, nothing pisses me off more than getting into a dumb deal. And then I resent the people that I'm in the deal with because I didn't negotiate properly. And if you believe in what you're doing, you better own your work. You better understand the long tail payoff of your work because nobody will market your work better than you, and you will be profoundly pissed off when somebody else is making their money 100 years from now. And for every author that's listening, make sure you look at Amazon because the relatives of what's-his-face, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective whatever, they're the ones collecting checks on that because that book is still hitting. So you want to be like Mariah Carey. She laughs all the way to the bank whenever Christmas rolls around because of that song. And so, I self-publish the audiobook. I have a tremendous partnership with Audible where we create a lot of original content for them behind their paywall. And I self-published this book, and we destroyed it in sales the month of October. The number one selling audiobook, period, hands down, of any book that was published, period. AP reported it. Everybody reported it. And then the New York Times comes out in November, and they rank the top 10 audiobooks of the month of October, and they deliberately left me off. And when that happened, I punched the wall. I drank a gin martini. I lit up a joint. I called a couple friends and I immediately got triggered because I went right back to the experience of being a 9th grader on the tennis team and having the seniors throw a party, and I was the only 9th grader who wasn't involved. And so it triggered a very old pattern that I thought I had fucking gotten rid of, which is I'm an outsider. Nobody likes me. I'm always having to sneak in. Why am I never invited? Why am I not part of the cool kids? Why am I not it's that old stupid ass story that got triggered. And so of course this shit happens. It happens all the time. And I just happen to talk about it because I don't like feeling these things. And I find that just trying to shove it down makes the next time it happens get even bigger. And so I share this stuff because I think holding it in is what's creating a lot of anxiety and regret and upset and stuckness for people. We are all so the same. And the more that, I kind of share the ups and downs, I think the more people listen to the things that are working and try them out and tweak them for their own life. And look, if I can save anybody the heartache and the headaches I caused myself, that's a life well lived. You know, if I can laugh at myself along the way, if I can punch a wall and drink a gin martini and then share with you like, okay, this, and then get out. Because how I got out of that, because I could have been in that cycle, the old Mel would have been there for a month. Everybody's out to get me. I never get recognized. Why even bother? It doesn't matter. And it allows me to share in real time that I feel all the shit, but I don't like to stay there. And this is not toxic positivity. It is important when you're disappointed to allow yourself to feel disappointed. It is important when you lose something to give yourself the grace to grieve for as long as you need to. It is important to have a good cry, to have a good scream, it's important to feel the highs and the lows. You're meant to feel it all. But you can shorten the length of time you stay down. And what always helps me, it's something that, you know, I developed when the 5-second rule launch was coming off the rails, is I just kept saying what I've said a couple times during this. I say to myself, I refuse to believe that if I'm a good person and that if I'm working hard, I refuse to believe that this doesn't work out. I refuse to believe that I'm not going to be okay. Like, I know that this moment's going to pass, and I know that I will look back on this moment 5 years from now, and I'll see exactly what I was meant to learn. And what I was meant to learn, I already know, is that I have got to once and for all stop looking for validation in old institutions. If I truly want to be an artist on my own terms, don't even pay attention to that shit, because it doesn't matter in the world that we're living in now. It doesn't matter if you really want to make impact, because the person that's struggling is the person that you want to reach, not the person that's deciding who gets on some stupid list that's printed in a paper. And redirecting your focus to what actually matters. And the fact that you believe in your heart, that you got the mindset, you got the work ethic, you got the ability to figure this shit out and to keep going. And that eventually, if you do, what's meant for you is going to find you. You will be rewarded for all this in the way that you're meant to be rewarded. That's amazing. It's an amazing feeling because you can pick yourself up no matter what happens.
It's so crazy because me and Erica are so professional. Last time Mel was supposed to come here and wires got crossed and she was here and we were not. And we were in another meeting and I was like, oh no, Erica, like I have to call her. I'm scared. Oh no. So I went outside and I'm like, hello.
I didn't help her at all. I was like, she's gonna have to deal with Mel Robbins is outside of the office. I'm like, she's gonna have to deal with it. I can't do it. I was in the midst of like that day. I was like I broke down and had like this crazy anxiety moment and I was like, can't help you. And
I was like, I should call
it out.
And I thought for sure I was going to get like your assistant. I was like, perfect. Like, hey, so we're not there. She's like, no, this is Mel. I'm like, ugh.
Well, I literally, you did call
but then
somebody
she got,
on the team and I said, give me that phone right now.
She got me. Oh, you did?
Yes.
She got me together so
Why?
quick. I was like, shit. I was like, I just got coached. She's like, don't apologize. Stop apologizing. It's fine. It happens. I'm like, you're okay. Yeah. You're right. I'm not sorry. I am sorry. Sorry?
No, do not say you're sorry.
She's like, your team needs to be on lock because you're growing. I'm like, you're mother right.
That's right. So you asked me in the beginning, come to the table with a mantra. And we're going to talk why most mantras are bullshit. But one mantra I love is that I always say to myself, especially when the shit hits the fan, or especially when I hear the anxiety or I feel the anxiety. And for anxiety for me always starts in my ankles and it rolls up like a train through my body. And I always say to myself, this moment is preparing me for something amazing that hasn't happened yet. This moment is preparing me for something amazing that hasn't happened yet. And so when I say that, It's a way to flip yourself out of anxiety and fear and self-doubt and self-rejection and self-bashing and flip into this thing I call a high five attitude, which grounds you into faith and optimism and a little bit of confidence when you need it. Because the fact of the matter is, that was the perfect breakdown for you two to have. For me to be out here in LA, I don't live in LA, to be standing here. You know, I drive 45 minutes, here, organize the day around coming here, and I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I want you to understand that the universe gives you the size of a breakdown that you need in order to wake your ass up. And I'm telling you, you have probably had other scheduling breakdowns. You have probably had other process breakdowns, but they weren't big enough to make you go, I'm going to pay attention now. And so when you stand in those moments and go, this is preparing me for something amazing that hasn't happened yet, what that moment prepared you for is respecting the platform you're building and respecting yourselves so that you take this moment and say, oh, I actually have to level up in this moment. I got to upgrade the systems around me. I got to upgrade the calendaring. I got to upgrade the, whatever it is. And I can say that to you because I have fucked up so many times. And I think when you kind of get into something and you're in it because you really want to connect with people and you want to make an impact and it sort of just happens organically. Me personally, I was completely naive about what it meant to have a business and to have a brand where you're the face of it, what it means for your family, what it means in terms of liability, what it means in terms of how fast things start coming at you. And so if I could, as somebody who is probably, 25 more ups ahead of you, save you the heartache and the headache that I've caused myself, then I would love to do that. And that's why I was literally like, don't you dare apologize. Like, just get the lesson and change the stuff. And the other reason why I want you to not apologize, apologize when something happens. So say I really apologize or whatever. But what I want you to do instead, especially as women and especially as two women that are going to build something monstrous, okay? I want you to flip out of your vocabulary the word I'm sorry. And I want you to insert the word thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you why. Because in that moment, you're like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It becomes, the focus goes on you making the mistake. So you feel terrible. It also makes the person on the receiving end of the I'm sorry feel like I need to reassure you. When instead in those moments where you legitimately have a breakdown, you didn't intentionally go, fuck Mel Robbins, let's just ghost her. And let's put a video out front and let's see what this bitch does. That's not what happened.
Let's record what she says about us and see what happens.
Exactly. That's not what happened at all.
We're punking you.
Yeah, literally. That's not what happened. So in those moments when you can go, hey, look, we had a breakdown. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for your patience. When you go, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your flexibility. You get it off the battering ram of hitting yourself and making yourself wrong and making somebody feel like they need to reassure you, and you step into your power. And you go, things happen. I appreciate your flexibility. I appreciate, you see what I'm saying? What are you getting from that?
I'm thinking, because I definitely, saying I'm sorry is definitely something I do a lot, but I've been trying to undo, and I also encourage my friends to not apologize too, but never really thinking about how it makes the person that you're saying I'm sorry to then have to reassure you. Not only maybe you've inconvenienced them, but then you're also making them have to reassure you that it's okay. I never really thought about that part, because you think that you're doing them a service almost by saying I'm sorry, when really it's not. It's not.
It doesn't change whatever's been done.
Well, it makes them have to like she said, reassure you, when that's not their job either. Not only are you sorry for whatever it is you did, but now they're also having to reassure whatever choices.
Well, and now let me tell you the bigger thematic piece of this, because it's so conditioned into women and girls to say they're sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Is that when it becomes so casual that you are literally apologizing for ordering gluten-free bread, right? I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that I'm a pain in the ass when I order. I'm sorry, but could I please have gluten-free with that? You are taking away your right to take up space. You are invalidating what you need. You are invalidating your right to request the things that support you. Like if you feel self-conscious because you don't have a simple order, just say, hey, thank you so much. This is a really important thing to make sure that it's gluten-free. Now you're acknowledging the waiter instead of bashing yourself for having a need.
And you're actually empowering the waiter to do the job well.
Yes.
Because now they're like, wow, okay, I'm going to get this right.
Yeah. You can certainly apologize when you screw something up, but then flip it into a thank you to acknowledge the other person for giving you the grace to be human.
Right. Yeah, I think sorry does take away giving yourself grace to be human. Like, no, I didn't do it on purpose. Yeah, that's so true. As women, we apologize all the time, all day long. I say it so much that it just rolls off the tongue. I'm like, hi, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. I'm like scooting past people who are too close. Sorry. No, back up.
Yeah.
Women were just like, I think we are so conditioned to not take up space, to be seen but not heard almost, you know?
Yeah.
It feels uncomfortable to do it. If even having the conversation, I'm like, damn, how am I going to substitute thank you for I'm sorry? That's going to be a lot of thank yous.
Yeah, but it's empowering because you literally feel like you're in control of everything.
Right.
Thank you for waiting for me instead of I'm sorry I'm late.
Thank you for being flexible with us and giving.
Thank you for coming back and blessing us with these gems right off the top. Just
right. I told her, I was like, I'm excited for this interview now. I'm like, wow, I don't know what. She was like, stop disrespecting your business. That's what she told me. I was like, damn, I never heard it put that way. I'm going to stop. I swear to God. Yeah. And guess what happened that week? We had a fucking meeting. We're sure like, let's get on a call because shit is slipping through the cracks and it's our business. So we got to get it together.
Well, and by the way, as you continue to level up, you're going to have to do that again. And as you continue to level up, you're going to have to do that again. We're doing that right now with our own social media team because we've just been in the middle of this big book launch and now we need to postmortem because, I think a lot of times, especially in a space where you're building something new, it's around something you're passionate about, you basically build the airplane as you're flying it.
You've never put it so good when you said that. When you have a business that you've developed through passion that you really didn't even realize you were building it, and then you're like, oh fuck, I'm in a business and there's people that need to be paid and there's all these moving parts that you really didn't expect. So you didn't have a business plan and then implement the shit. It just happened because it is a project of passion. And I'm so happy to be sitting down with you because obviously you're ahead of us in this and taking this advice means a lot. Sometimes we talk about it and we know it's true, but we're like, are we tripping? Are we terrible business people? I'm like, kinda. This wasn't supposed to be a business.
Well, and that's the other thing. You're not going to be good at everything. And so one of the biggest breakthroughs for me, and this was one of the gifts of doing that daytime talk show that I was eventually fired from, but one of the gifts of it, again, this moment is preparing you for something amazing that's happening, is to all of a sudden step into a television show. 135 people on the team, Sony Pictures Television. We're filming at the CBS Broadcast Center. I had never been a part of a machine that big. 175 episodes taped in about 5 months flat.
Wow.
It is crazy. A machine. But what I realized is, I'm actually a really CEO. No wonder it's been painful and I've been a workaholic because I have been disrespecting my business. And I have been trying to do everything. And I have been so insecure that I have not been confident enough to hire people around me that have more experience than me. And when I got into the right seat on that, train that was moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, I'm like, I'm not supposed to be running the production. I'm supposed to empower people to create a production machine around me so I can do what I love doing, and that will make it grow. And so that's what I also meant by don't stop disrespecting the business and yourselves. You two have a genius. You have a particular thing or things that you're remarkable at. I am horrible at execution. I can walk into a meeting and ideas will fly off of me. I can talk like we're gonna make $1 million, and like all these ideas are gonna hit, and they will. The second I walk out of the door, I'm not doing any of that. So if you don't start to understand what piece of this makes the money, what piece do I love doing, what's the piece that we actually need to hire, you're at that stage. And that's the scariest stage in any business. Doesn't matter what business you're in.
I'm so scared.
There's a reason why my ass is in this chair right now.
I swear to God, it's like we needed you this week, not that week. This was the day. This was the day we needed to hear all these messages. It's like I'm getting goosebumps.
I want to just dive straight in because this was not an easy book for you to write. Am I correct? And I also love that you revealed, and I want to get into this a little bit later, but can you just tell everyone, for those who might think it's Mel friggin' Robbins and she can just pop things out and create things, and here's her next big best-selling book. Can you reveal to people why this one was a challenge and what that road was like for you?
Sure. This is the first book that I've put out in print in almost 5 years. And one of the reasons why it's a challenge is because I have dyslexia. I have ADHD. It's hard for me to get something on paper. I mean, I can talk and blather on like an idiot, forever, particularly if I have a few drinks in me. So audio stuff is super easy, but actually getting something on paper, my mind doesn't work that way. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I really struggled just like everybody does. And I know that so many of you that follow your work, Marie, and that love you or that are alumni of your incredible courses, I should say. We all struggle with this notion that we don't know what the thing is, and then so I didn't know what to write about. And because the 5-second rule had such a profound impact on millions of people's lives, absolutely anything that I kind of put on paper just seemed kind of stupid.
Yes.
And so I became my own biggest critic. And in the last probably 4.5 years, my family will tell you, I drove them absolutely fucking crazy because I was constantly working on a book. And I would crank out something, and my process of writing is to dictate. So I just record, because you don't have to make yourself do things the hard way. If you struggle with something, figure out a cheat. For me, it was just dictating, putting little voice memo notes in my phone. It would be sitting in front of my computer and just dictate. And then we'd send them off for transcription. And then what I would find is that the things that I was saying did not actually translate down to writing. I skip words. I sort of put the front of the sentence at the end of the sentence when I talk. And so we would edit, and nothing seemed good. And I started to feel discouraged. And this was what was going on for 4 years. And
okay.
I want to go ahead.
Let me interrupt you because I really want to unpack this because there's not many people in the world that I can do this with. And I feel like you and I are soul sisters in this way.
We so are.
So my question for you was the idea for the high five habit there, or were you kind of test driving different?
Oh my God, no. The idea for the high five habit was nowhere on the radar screen.
Yes.
I was writing things like, motivation is garbage. That's what we should do because of that clip that went viral with Tom Bilyeu. And that just kind of didn't light me up.
Yes.
And that's how you know if you have an idea that's for you. An idea that's for you is sort of like a little spark in a forest almost. It's like that little first pop that you feel energy, a great idea that's your idea or that's the right idea for you. It might not end up being the thing.
Yep.
It expands you. There's a little bit of something. And honestly, as I was working for the last 4 years, I felt dead. I felt defeated. I just knew even if I pushed an idea forward, Marie, it wasn't it.
Yes.
And so yes.
So I want to play with that for a minute because did you have the feeling, two things. One, that your best work had already come out, that the 5-second rule was like the thing.
For sure.
Okay, good. I just want to say that because I've had that so many times. So I just want to normalize that so people don't think you or I or other people like us or people that they admire are these like kind of special unicorns. And 2, did you have a voice in your head that said, if I was really a writer or coach or whatever professional leading person in this field of personal development, that I would be able to crank out like a book a year? And by the way, it's not like you've been sitting twiddling your thumbs, right? You've got best-selling audiobooks, but I just want to know from the inside out, because I've had this, that because the idea wasn't like right there and you just couldn't do it, that it kind of starts this backpedaling of like, I must just suck. I'm like a one-hit wonder.
1,000%. And then on top of it, I completely tortured myself by watching people that I love, like you or Jay Shetty or, Gabby or anybody that is kind of in even our friend group where I'm like, I love you and I hate you. I love you and I hate you. Why are they able to crank out those many videos? Why are they able to put those courses? There must be something wrong with me. Yeah. I'm just a one-hit pony here. I got lucky on the 5-second rule. By the skin of my teeth, that thing got done. It's helping people. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm done here. There will never be another idea. I'm not as smart as those people. I'm not as organized as those people. I got lucky. Like that is 1,000% what I said. And, the other thing too is that I also felt like I was on the outside. And so I will tell everybody, this is so important because I think when you start launching your own thing, you're lit up because you're finally going to start your yoga studio. You're finally going to start that catering business, or you're finally going to start that flower growing business, or you're finally going to do the thing. And then all of a sudden you do the thing. And instead of being excited and thrilled and validating yourself, you then look up and go, oh, wait a minute. There are all these other people that do something similar and they're all friends or they're all bigger than me. And then you start to tell your story that you're the little one on the outside looking in.
Yes.
That you're not part, you know what I mean? And then you use that to invalidate yourself.
Completely.
And so I found a gajillion ways to tell myself, I call it pile driving. I would just pile drive myself. And, it was paralyzing, and it makes the process of creating anything so sucky, so laborious, so stress filled. It creates more procrastination. And so I have been in the soup of self-judgment for 4.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I remember I've talked about this a couple times, but I don't think we can say it enough. Like my process for creating everything is figure outable. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like I am absolutely unable to figure out how to write a book called Everything is Figure Outable, and tortured the hell out of myself while I was writing it. And like, should I give back the money? I'm not really meant to do that. I mean, like, and this has happened so many times in my career. So I love talking about this stuff because sometimes these are the stories that you don't get to hear. And people just make all of these assumptions, and it's just not the truth.
Well, and when that book came out, let me just tell you what happened. Your book came out, and I saw this incredible title. I saw this on-brand book. I saw you putting more amazing, life-changing work out. The book is fucking fantastic.
Thank you.
I read every, word, and you don't even read every word and let it seep in because you're like, this is so good. Why didn't I do this? Of course she can put a book out because she's Marie. You know what I mean? So you literally, and it's so interesting because, one of the things you and I are going to talk about is that your relationship with yourself is the foundation for everything.
Yes.
So if you look in the mirror and you judge yourself or reject yourself or you are insecure about anything, you then take that self-rejection and self-judgment and that insecurity and you project it on everything that you see. And so instead of being able to walk in a world where your genius coexists with other people's genius, instead of being able to walk in a world where you're like, everything is unfolding for me. This is taking time because it's supposed to. Marie is a light on the path for me. And if I'm secure with myself and if I can literally support and encourage myself, even when I'm struggling, what happens is you start to see the world differently. I see your book and I'm like, if she can do it, that means she's lighting the path and I can do it. And the only reason why, again, I couldn't do that is because I hadn't actually discovered or started to feel the impact of this high five habit thing,
Yes.
which was a total, I didn't set out to do this. I did not say, okay, I need another book with a 5 in it. And it's not going to be the 5 decisions. It's not going to be the 5 this. I need another book with a 5. And we got to figure out and it's going to be 5 parts and 5. Like, no, that's not what I set out to do.
Yes.
Life punched me in the fucking face.
Yes.
And I fell into a hole. Like we all fall into a hole. And this is kind of my brand, for better or for worse. This is what I'm going to need to embrace. My brand of transformation is dig a hole or fall in one and then figure out how to build a ladder. And then as you're doing this process of helping yourself pick yourself back up through a really hard time, I have had 2 instances in my life where I have stumbled upon something that is absurd on its face that turns out to have been handed to me by the universe as a gift. And it also turns out, when you unpack it, to have a mind-blowing amount of depth and science to it. And that's what the high five habit is. Here's tactics that you can start to use in order to be more intentional and more influential in a virtual or remote or international work environment. Number 1, create an influence map. And when you're thinking about it from a remote standpoint, don't just do 2 or 3. I want you to think about all the people that you need to influence or you have an influence on. So people whose support that you need in order to get things done. People who you need to motivate, who are doing the work. People who you need to make sure know about you, that are above you. And what you're going to find when you create a global influence map of all the people that you need or that you impact with your work, your influence is a lot bigger than you're giving yourself credit for. That's number 1. Now I want you to pick the top 3 people on that map that you want to create a stronger relationship with. And you're going to use the advice that I already gave you, which is you're going to send a morning text message or a morning, if there's an internal Slack channel, I don't know what y'all use, but if there's an internal sort of instant messaging platform, not email, an instant message, a good morning message, good morning. And if it's a follow-up from a conversation, if it's a check-in about a project, popping up first thing in the morning with a good morning email, just wanted to say hello, reminding you that I'm here, that will keep you top of mind. It's a way to create a water cooler moment when you're not face to face in an office. It will feel a little odd when you first start doing it because you're not used to doing it, but trust me, that instant message first thing in the morning, just checking in, if it becomes a habit, you will create that consistent relationship and trust that's required for elevating your influence with that person. Another thing that you can do, if you're managing remote teams, this is going to sound cheesy, but you could take a photo of yourself with your phone number and mail it to the people that you're trying to influence to remind them that if they need you, you're there to call you. Because a lot of times, if you're not top of mind, they forget about you altogether. So if there are people you need to influence that you wish would pick up the phone and call you, put something physical in their space. Send them a card with your phone number on it, something they can put up to remind them that you are there to help. And finally, I'm a humongous fan of video messaging, not video conference calls. I'm talking about video messaging. Take out your selfie camera on your cell phone, and instead of sending somebody a voicemail, text them a video message of you filming yourself with a selfie, something that you need, something you wanted to communicate, and then text it to them, instant message them. It creates the real in-person feeling. It's unexpected. It's fun. If you want to present something to somebody, use Loom. Loom is a screen recording software where you can talk and you can record your own computer screen and walk somebody through a presentation and send it to them. Final thing, I've already mentioned this, but boy, oh boy, make sure you're checking in with the folks that you want to influence so that your work is strategically aligned with what actually matters and that your focus is strategic. Do end of week recaps, because that keeps you top of mind and is super helpful for the people that you're trying to influence. Solve big problems, raise your hand for big challenges. You do those things consistently and it will elevate your influence. Remember, you're not going to think your way to greater influence. You must act your way there. You now have the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If it's uncomfortable to show up differently, use the 5-second rule to push yourself. Identify what you want people to say about you when you leave a room and how you want to make them feel, and then start acting like that person that you want to become. And if you need feedback because you're worried about your perception, go get it. Ask for specific examples about specific behavior, and don't forget the SKS rule. What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to keep doing? And what do you need me to start doing? You get all of that and you will have so much influence, you won't know what to do with it.
You and I were just talking about this. I think that life is so freaking overwhelming.
Yeah.
And when your problems seem overwhelming, or when that dream job seems impossibly far away, we all make this fundamental mistake of believing that because your problems are so big, the solution must be big, or because the dream is so far away, that the way that you're going to get there is so enormous. And the fact is, it's the exact opposite, everybody. That when your problems are enormous, it is the littlest thing that moves you in a different direction and starts to chip away at it. When your dream is enormous, it's the littlest thing that gets you moving. And when you understand that you can get started towards something by doing the smallest little thing, and it'll crack open something inside you and let some light back in, that's powerful.
In here, there's a picture of you in your kitchen, and it
Mm-hmm.
says that this story will give us goosebumps and it'll teach us the proper way to manifest using science. Oh, this is a podcast. I can't show them the picture.
But there's videos that they can see. But because we on our platform really believe in manifesting. We talk about manifesting with the zero science behind it, other than just dreams turning. No, I know, Mel, turning into like.
And I just feel like our life, like everything that we have done, we have like randomly just put out in there, and then eventually, of course, there's lots that comes in between. But what we celebrate is when the things that we really kind of put out there actually come to life. So tell us about your perspective on all this.
Well, I 1,000% believe in manifesting, but a lot of us are doing manifesting wrong, where you create a vision board about the big vision.
Mm-hmm.
And what research shows is that simply having the beach house or the marathon finish line on your vision board is actually demotivating. Because what starts to happen for people is you see the thing that you want and you start to feel further and further and further away from it. And so, yes, you should have big dreams. And yes, you should write them down every day. And yes, you should do that because you have a filter in your brain that I'm teaching you to use and to program that will change in real time based on what you tell it is important. But the most important part of manifesting is activating something in your brain called the Zeigarnik effect, or the Zeigarnik effect. And that is for you to pick the beach house. So let's use a marathon, because a marathon is a really simple metaphor that everybody understands. Let's say you want to check off a bucket list item and you want to complete a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. Yes, put the finish line up. Yes, put the race bib up. Yes, put up all these things that show you what it feels like to accomplish the goal. But if you really want to get it done, also put on that board a photo of somebody running in the rain. Also put on that board a photo of an alarm clock that says 5:13 a.m.
The reality.
Also put up the reality. And then when you're manifesting and you're thinking about crossing that finish line, don't stay on the finish line. Think about what it's going to be like in February when you're on mile 11 on a training run and your earbuds run out and it starts to rain and you see yourself continuing to run. And when you manifest and visualize and allow yourself to feel that moment, the moment in between, the work that gets you there, you want a business of your own, manifest late nights, manifest the text where you say, sorry, I got to stay in and work on something, can't come to the party. Manifest you being told no. Manifest the thing getting canceled. Manifest picking up the phone again, because what you're doing is you're socializing your nervous system and your brain and your heart and your soul to do the work and to not stop when all of the things that happen that come into your way will eventually believe. And this is a way to cultivate something that I'm going to teach you how to do, which is to have a high five attitude. A high five attitude is simply the belief that if you continue to work hard, if you stay optimistic, if you give up your timeline through optimism, through hard work, you can figure it out. Things will work out how they're meant to work out. You can make a difference through your attitude and your effort on anything. That's a high five attitude, that no matter what's going on around you.
Do you believe in pessimism and optimistic personalities, or do you believe that pessimism and optimism are a choice? Like, because some people have come from a land of no, and is that learned, or is that something you have to work towards, the land of knowers who
depends on the baby's first word.
I think it's an excellent question. And I believe optimism is a skill that everybody needs to practice and learn, because all the studies show that when you have a more positive outlook, and I believe in realistic optimism. That doesn't mean toxic positivity. It doesn't mean that you can put a nice brush stroke on really shitty problems that people face, from poverty to racism to discrimination to all these things that are real. You may be facing a death, you in your family, you may have a heartbreak, somebody may have cheated. Like, this shit is real.
Yeah.
But here's the difference that an optimistic or high five attitude has. When you become pessimistic, the obstacles magnify and your belief in yourself diminishes. When you start to, again, high five yourself in that mirror. And here's the thing, especially if you're going through a challenging time, you need it more than ever. Because when you raise the hand and you go to high five yourself, right when somebody just said, I'm sorry, I don't love you anymore, I've fallen in love with your best friend, the high five is also an acknowledgement that this fucking sucks. I see you. I see that this sucks. And it's also in the same time saying, and you know what? You're going to be okay. I got you. I got your back. We don't watch a marathon, right? If you're a spectator at a marathon, you don't stand at mile 8 and go, you're not done yet. I'm not cheering for you right now. Look at that split time for that half mile. You don't do that. You freaking high five and cheer for the runners every step of the way, because it's what keeps them going. You see, we have bought into this lie that you got to hit the number on the scale before you're going to celebrate yourself. You have to have the money in the bank account. You have to have the right relationship. You got to be where you're supposed to be and drive the right car and have the right house and have the right friend group before you will celebrate yourself. I'm here to tell you it's the opposite.
Right.
You actually need to show up every day and give yourself the support. If you can drag your ass out of bed after these last 18 months and you're still breathing and you're still trying to do a little bit better, you not only deserve a high five, you need one.
You've been really good at manifesting results in your life, especially since the last book. What is your thoughts on how to manifest?
Yeah, everyone's doing it wrong. That's my thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then how should we manifest the dreams that we have inside of us?
Okay.
And what's your thoughts about the law of attraction, on how to apply it the right way? Or
I think the law of attraction and manifesting are the same thing. So law of attraction, for everybody who has not read The Secret, is simply your thoughts become things. And it's true. We've talked all about how when you have a negative self-talk, it tends to draw more of that to you. I think about it like lint in a dryer. Once negative stuff starts collecting, it collects a lot more. We can also talk about your brain filter, something called the reticular activity system, and how it is a live network that filters the brain. We'll dig into that deeper, but let's do surface level right now, manifesting law of attraction. So here's what everybody gets wrong about manifesting. Everybody, at least kind of in the mass market, what you're trained to think about when you think about manifesting is vision boards. And when you hear the word vision boards, you think about the big stuff. Should you have big dreams? Of course you should. Should you dream of building a mansion on the ocean if that's your thing? Yes. Should you dream of the log cabin? Yes. If you want a Lamborghini or the new Ford Bronco, should you put? Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. If you want the family, if you want the body, should you think about? Yeah, absolutely. Here's where everybody goes wrong. You dream about the end. You make this gorgeous collage of all this stuff that has nothing to do with your current life. That literally, as you're sitting in your studio apartment with the cat box that hasn't been changed in 2 weeks.
No food in the fridge.
No food in the fridge. And you're looking for a job and you're staring at a mansion going, someday, it's going to make you feel like a loser.
Yeah.
Because the gap between where you are and where you want to go, it seems insurmountable. And so what happens, based on the research, is when you only visualize the end game, Lewis, it's demotivating. At first, it's really fun to like have a bottle of wine and make your like collage. I'm gonna visualize. I'm gonna slap this up. There's my vision board. This is fabulous. Law of attraction, baby. Come on. I'm gonna think about it. It's gonna come to me. Okay, I've been doing this for 2 days. I'm still in this apartment with the cat box that needs to be changed. The way to visualize properly is to visualize the bridge between where you are and where you need to go.
The bridge.
Yes, and particularly the horrible stuff. So let's use your example of the marathon. The vision board would be Lewis crossing.
With the arms up at the medal.
The arms up, the
Yes.
medal.
The
Exactly.
high fives. Yeah,
High fives.
I did it.
Yes, I did it. Exactly. That will not help you. Because when you hit mile 13 on the actual race and it is sleeting rain.
You're saying, why am I doing this?
Yes, and it feels nothing like that thing on your vision board. You're going to start a negative dialogue. I can't do this. My knees hurt. This is not what I thought it was going to be. I'm not ready for this. I didn't train for this. I'm running New York. I trained in LA. Are you running in New York?
LA.
Okay, good. Well, then at least you trained in the right weather.
Yeah.
So on and on and on, and you are going to tank yourself. What you do by visualizing the bridge is you train your nervous system and your mind to do the hard work. So you should visualize not crossing the finish line, but what is it like to be at mile 12 when your batteries run out on your earbuds?
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
And you keep going. What's it like when your shoelace breaks and now your heel is lifting and you're starting to get a blood blister at mile 17? What's it feel like when you wake up and it is pouring rain and you visualize yourself running anyway? That way, when you visualize the work, you are preparing your body for it so you're not resistant to it when it comes.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
I think it's great. It's a story that I had George St. Pierre, who's one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. He said that he always puts himself in the most uncomfortable situations in practice leading up to the fight. The hardest situations to get himself out of. When his arms are behind his back and he's face against the mat and in between the fence and he's just getting punched in the face. He's like, how do I get out of this?
Right.
He's like, visualize that and seeing how can I get through this?
Yeah, exactly.
When it seems like I just want to tap out.
Yes.
And instead of tapping out, what's the process for figuring out how to get through it?
Yeah.
To then raise my hand at the end victorious.
Totally. And so you are literally building up almost like this resilience and this muscle inside of you to do the work to get the thing. So yeah, create the vision board, but make sure in addition to crossing the finish line, you have somebody running in the rain.
Right.
You have somebody you have an alarm clock that says 5:13. You have, these images that show the stuff that you don't want to do. So like for people who want to launch a business, for example, like a lot of people that I'm sure follow both of us are dying to launch a business or interested in being an influencer, social media, or making money online. And what you visualize are the checks, or you visualize the money you're going to make, or you visualize how cool it's going to be when you're a lifestyle entrepreneur, whatever the hell it is. Don't do that. Visualize working a day job and telling your friends that you're not going to go out tonight because you're working on something.
Yeah.
Visualize making cold calls and being told no. Visualize not going to that party because you're staying in on a Saturday and not going to the barbecue because you're putting in the work.
Yeah.
Visualize sitting at a seminar and learning from other people. Visualize watching YouTube videos. Visualize your first ever course failing miserably.
Right.
Like literally, that's the sort of thing that you want to visualize yourself doing and pushing through. because that's going to help you do the work.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
I think that's great. Yeah, visualizing. So in order to manifest what you want, don't just visualize the good things happening, visualize the bridge, all the things it's going to take to get there.
Yes, and the hard parts of the bridge, because then you're ready for it. Then you're like, I didn't expect this to be this hard. I mean, it's still going to be hard.
Right.
But you're less likely to quit.
Yes. So what have you done in the last 5 years to help you manifest after the first book? Were you doing this as well, or kind of once you get on a rhythm and build momentum, does it become easier to manifest, in your opinion?
Well, so I am constantly training my mind to work for me. And there's this little trick that I talk about in the book that is all sort of the beginning of having a high five attitude. And a high five attitude is the ability to catch yourself when you're going mentally low and to flip yourself back up into a high five attitude.
Okay.
The thing that I know to be true is that you cannot control the things around you. You can't control what's going to happen. You can't even control how your nervous system might respond or what thoughts might pop into your head. But you can always choose what you do next and what you make it mean, right? And so that's where all the power is.
Yes.
And so I do this thing where this is, again, it's going to sound so dumb, but it's a way for me to introduce you to the power that your mind has to change in real time.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about negative self-talk. And part of the reason why negative self-talk is so crippling is not only because you've repeated it for so long and now it's a pattern, but it's also because you have a filter on your brain called the Reticular Activity System, okay? This puppy is the keys to everything. And it's remarkable that most of us have never heard of it. We've experienced it, but we don't know how to use it to our advantage. So first, let me tell you what the RAS does. Then I'm going to give you an example of when you've experienced it in your life. And then I'm going to explain to you how to use it to get what you want in life. This is like the super attractor manifesting, and it also works for interrupting negative self-talk. Like it's going to supercharge all the work you're doing with the mirror and interrupting thoughts. So first, let's talk about the RAS. So the RAS, imagine a hairnet on your brain, only it's like electric, meaning it's alive, okay? Now, the RAS has one job, and the job is block out 99% of what's going on and let in 1% of what's going on. Our brains at this moment in history are having to process about 34 days worth of cell phone data in one day.
Crazy.
It's crazy. And so your RAS has a monster job. It's like a bouncer at a bar. You're not coming in, you can come in. And you've experienced this. So have you ever shopped for a car?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the last car you bought?
Tesla.
Oh, Tesla. Oh, fancy.
Yeah,
Lewis House. I like that.
Well, I never had a nice car until 3 years ago. I had a $4,000 car for 5 years before that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? I have no Bluetooth. It's like, I just needed an upgrade.
No, I love it.
It was
You
a
deserve
1991.
Dude, you deserve it.
I had a 1991
deserve
Cadillac.
it.
And I was like, okay,
You
let's
deserve
buy
it.
a car. So I bought a Tesla, yeah.
Right. And so before you thought about buying a Tesla, you drive down the road, you don't really think about it. The second you're like, I think I'm interested in a Tesla, what do you see everywhere?
Teslas.
Yes, everywhere.
Everywhere.
My husband just bought a pickup truck. I never even noticed them. Now I'm like, there are baby blue pickup trucks everywhere. What is going on? That's the bouncer in your brain. And let me tell you how this works. There are only 4 things that automatically get through the bouncer in your brain, the RAS. Number 1, your name. So you've experienced being in a crowded place and somebody's like, you think you hear Lewis and you're like, huh? Somebody call my name? That was the bouncer in your brain. The second thing that always gets let in is any threat to your safety. So there are loud noises all the time, but only ones in close proximity make you go like this. That was the bouncer in your brain letting it in.
Okay.
The third thing that gets let in is when you sense that your partner is interested in sex with you or somebody else. You're like, Chris, who are you looking at? Stop looking at her. You know what I'm saying? You kind of pick up on the signals. That's the bouncer in your brain. And the fourth one, and this is the $1 billion thing that everybody needs to know. The bouncer in your brain lets in whatever you think is important to you. So when you get intentional about telling your brain what's important to you, like, I'm interested in a Tesla, your brain's literally like, oh, let all the Teslas in. Come on in. Here's the downside to this. If you have told yourself that you are a bad person for the last 10 years, guess what your brain thinks is important? Examples that mean you're a bad person.
Right.
So I'm going to give you a very specific example. So I personally don't think I'm a bad person. I don't think I'm perfect, but I know I do my best. I mean well. I don't have that story about myself at all. I used to, but I don't. And let's say I oversleep and I miss the dentist. I miss the dentist appointment. I'm like, oh, I got to pay the $25. I got to reschedule that thing. That kind of blows. That's all I think. And then I go on. My daughter, who constantly beats herself up and says she's a bad person, this is a real example, by the way. She oversleeps, misses a dentist appointment, and it becomes, see, I always screw everything up. I'm always messing things up. Like everything that gets let in confirms that you're a bad person.
She finds proof and evidence.
Yes, that's the bouncer in your mind. I'm here to tell you that when you get intentional about what you want to think about yourself, it changes in real time what your brain lets in and what it doesn't.
Yeah.
That helps you with the other things that you're doing. The high five in the mirror, the I'm not thinking about that, the pathetic mantra. Hey, just because I missed the dentist appointment doesn't mean I'm a bad person. I'm doing the best I can here. Give myself a break.
Right.
High five. You know what I'm saying? Shake it off. Get back in there. It's true, right?
Right.
Because it's these little things. Somebody cuts you off. Somebody reaches for the last thing of cereal that you wanted to buy at the grocery store. You think it's like a sign that the world's out to get you. This is all your story and your mind skewing the world to prove all of the stuff you keep repeating. And the only way to get a handle on it is to start acting the opposite. Like high five yourself, even though you don't feel like it. Interrupt the crap that you keep saying. Put your hands on your heart and settle your body down.
Yeah.
All of these things are things that somebody does when they care about themselves, when they think they deserve to be treated with kindness, when they think they deserve support, and when they realize they need it. And when you start to build yourself back up, you'll show up very differently in other relationships.
Absolutely.
If you tolerate this kind of treatment from yourself, you'll tolerate it from other people. It does begin with you.
And when you create boundaries and you don't abandon yourself, then you won't abandon yourself with other people either. You won't let them cross the boundaries.
Correct. Like if you stand in front of the mirror every single morning and you're like, I look like crap, I am not good enough, I'm unhappy with my life, and then you step into a relationship and somebody leaves you on red and they ghost you for 3 days, like you come to expect that because that's how you believe you think you deserve to be treated. When you stand in front of a mirror and you're like, hey, you're awesome. We got this. I got you. I know it's hard. We're going to go do this. Or, hey, this is a big day today. I've got this huge presentation. I am going to destroy this. You get into it. You're excited. Like then you're creating momentum for yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what? You're going to stand there and be like, oh my God, I'm going to screw this up. I'm not prepared. Like it's like the negative morning routine. Right. It leads to negative actions.
Absolutely.
So this training your RES. So here's what I want you to do. Starting tomorrow, after you wake up and make your bed and kind of settle your nervous system and high five yourself after setting your intention. So now you're like sending yourself into your morning routine in a totally different way with a calm down nervous system, an intention, and this boost of feeling supported and loved and celebrated. I want you to find one naturally occurring heart shape as you go through your day.
I saw this in your book.
Yeah. It could be a stone. It could be a leaf on the ground. It could be a cloud shape. It could be a coffee stain. It could be an oil stain on the floor of a garage. It could be a spot on a dog walking by. I want you to tell your mind, let's find a heart. Let's see if we can find a heart. And something weird's going to happen. You're going to see something. And then I want you to literally supersize what's going on in your brain. And what you do is when you see the heart, I want you to then take a moment and literally congratulate yourself, like feel like, oh my God, I found it. Like whatever you believe in, God, the universe, like greater connection, You put that there for me, and I found it. And I want you to feel this kind of wave of, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I just saw a heart. And then that positive thing, remember how I told you, the bouncer in your brain pays attention to what's important to you. When you get your nervous system celebratory involved, that makes your brain really pay attention. Just like trauma makes your brain pay attention.
It does.
So you supercharge the experience by celebrating it, and then look for another one in a row. I see hearts all day long.
Yeah.
And what happens when you start to play this game is you will start to realize you are walking by an entirely different world every single day because you're not looking for it. There are opportunities, there are signs, there are mile markers on your path that you are literally tuning out.
Yes.
And we can all sit in this moment, Lewis, and look back and see how the dots of our life connect us here. The coolest thing about practicing the high five habit, this training of finding hearts and the high five attitude, is that you start to ground yourself in the idea that this too is a dot on the map of your life. And it is leading you somewhere incredible. And when you start to have that kind of high five attitude, that there are signs, whether it's the little hearts that you're now seeing, or it's your ability to catch guilt or people pleasing or insecurity or the negative self-talk and be like, nope, not going down, not thinking about that, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get that high five attitude back. I can do this. I can have my own back. It's not going to be perfect, but I can keep going.
I really, really like that principle. And what I found, and you're so right that every day is different, is I found sleeping the same amount of time is more important than waking up at the same time.
Well, do you know the research around the snooze button?
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
okay. And
please
it's
tell
also,
us, please tell us.
Okay,
Yeah.
so literally, it also, when it comes to productivity and focus and fulfillment, it's not when you get up, it's how you get up. And there's all this crazy research. Like, I'm not some sort of like psycho about the alarm clock or the snooze button. I personally love sleeping in. But I also know that as somebody that struggled with anxiety for 3 decades, lying in bed in the morning or at night is the worst place I can be.
Absolutely.
That is where the anxiety can pin you down like a gravity blanket. And so understanding that the habit of hitting the snooze button has a detrimental impact on your productivity all day. Because what happens is when you wake up, your brain is typically ready to wake up. When you drift back to sleep after hitting the snooze button, your brain drifts back into a sleep cycle, which based on research takes about 75 minutes to complete. When the alarm goes off 9 minutes later, your brain is now trapped in a sleep cycle, and researchers say it takes you about 4 hours to snap out of what they call sleep inertia. That impacts your productivity all day long. And so you're complaining that I didn't get enough sleep and you feel groggy. No, you actually got plenty of sleep. You screwed yourself over by hitting the snooze button, and now your prefrontal cortex can't snap back into operation until you're ready to go.
And what to speak about emotionally, which is what you were talking about earlier, about you've broken your trust with yourself. And that's why when we set these unrealistic targets, oh, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow, I'm going to wake up at 6, whatever it is that's unrealistic for you. And then you hit the snooze button 4 times. And you wake up at the time you would have woken up at anyway. That's just made you lose faith in yourself over nothing, right?
Totally.
And that's the problem.
Totally. See, I'm kind of one of these people that I sort of like lame goals. Because I want you to win. You know, I'm just asking for a high five in the mirror. I'm just asking that you roll out of bed, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here's another wonderful one. Make your bed. Yes. And here's why. Not because I need you to be a Navy SEAL, but because when you literally, and I'm not even talking pop a quarter off of it. I'm talking throw the blanket across, karate chop a pillow, throw a throw on a diagonal, we're done here kind of thing. Here's why. Number one, it's a beautiful gift you can give to yourself. Because as you walk back into your room, it's done. You don't see a mess. Your brain sees a person that actually is kind to themselves and follows through on things. Tonight, when you lay down to dream, you have a nice place to come back to. And this is what I'm talking about with lame goals and what I call simple discipline. Simple discipline is roll out of bed when the alarm rings. Simple discipline is make your bed. Simple discipline. I'm even going to make exercise easy. You want to hear?
Yeah, go for it.
This is so easy. Okay, you ready? Tonight, in your closet, get your exercise clothes out, lay them on the floor, Put them right in your way so you can't step around them. Because then they're there as a trap on your floor the next morning. Again, you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, stepping over them is you breaking a promise. When you pull them on, I know you're more likely to exercise today because they're already on your body. And so, but in my book, we're practicing simple things here. So you get a high five just for pulling the tights on, man. Like, I'm not even going to count exercising. If you get the exercise clothes on, we've gotten up, we've made our bed, we got our exercise. Now we're going to high five the mirror. Honey, you just got 4 wins. You've only been up for 20 seconds. This is the Mel Robbins program. This is how you build trust with yourself.
Yes.
By setting really small goals, little tiny promises, because you're building a new muscle. And the most important promise in all of this is how you treat yourself in the mirror. Because as you know, Jay, that relationship that you have with yourself is the foundation for every relationship that you have. If you can't look yourself in the eye, you will never be able to allow somebody else to love you because you don't first love yourself. If you struggle with people pleasing, that's not about other people. That's about your insecurity with yourself. So it comes back again to this simple discipline of looking at yourself and learning how to be secure with the one human being you spend your whole life with. And the only way you're going to start being secure with who you are is when you start accepting and loving who you are, no matter where you are, whether you exercise today or not, whether you blew it yesterday or not, whether you really are trying hard and winning or not.
I love that. For me, making my bed also improves my relationship with my wife because she happens to wake up earlier than me. And therefore, we have a rule in our house. Whoever wakes up second does the bed, which means I end up doing the bed.
I don't like that rule because my husband gets up first.
Yeah. So anyway, I also have to do my bed. But my wife also likes to have like 20 pillows on the bed. So there's more pillows on the bed than there is a bed. And so I really don't enjoy doing the bed because I have to like organize these pillows.
Now, does she do the karate chop? Do you have to have the karate chop on the pillow?
Yeah, I have to do the karate chop. I have to lay the throw. I've got to put 3 pillows one behind the other. I mean, it's like real work. But by the time I finish doing that, I'm like, I can do anything.
Yes.
But I love all these principles you're talking about. But the biggest thing is the theme that's underlying all of them is celebrate, congratulate, build trust, which you're so right that this, if anyone's listening and thinking, oh, well, if I celebrate these little things, then I'll never do anything big. No, it's the other way around. It's that if you build trust with yourself, doing these little things, you'll trust yourself with bigger things. And anyone that you see that's doing big, bold, incredible things today is because they trusted themselves with the tiny, small, incremental changes.
Yeah.
And so when Mel's saying, celebrate just putting the gym clothes on, she's saying that because if you celebrate that, you'll notice that, hey, I can trust myself for this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about celebration because for both of us, and I also see this in you, and I think, when we're in Napa and we're with all our friends, I feel that celebration is something that everyone struggles with the more successful they become.
Because we're all good at giving everybody else a high five.
So everybody thinks they're extra good at it, but everybody's actually good at doing it. They won't give themselves one because they're not worthy.
Or nobody's ever taught you how.
Yeah.
Like, we all know we're supposed to validate ourselves and love ourselves and accept ourselves. How the f do you do it?
Yeah. What are you doing actually to physically do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the thing is that we're amazing at cheering for our favorite sports teams and downloading albums and planning birthday parties and doing extra work for colleagues who are stressed out and visiting people that are sick. We not only fall short, what I have found now researching this for a year is that most of us do the opposite. We withhold it from ourselves.
Yep. I do.
Yeah, I do too.
I do the 2 things you said. If I'm in a space by myself, I am typically being somewhat critical of myself, evaluating what I could have done. There's one thing we all do too. I could have done this better. That's actually self-criticism. I used to think, no, I'm growing. I'm evaluating myself. I'm self-aware. Nah, it's usually criticism.
Yeah.
It's usually criticism. And then because I avoid that guy, I do the invisible thing. I've literally gotten ready in front of hundreds of mirrors in my life and really never looked at myself. Really never looked at the man looking back at me. Like, I wonder sometimes, I've looked at myself so little, I don't know if everybody can relate to this. I don't know if I would recognize me in a crowd if I were there. And that's a pretty sad thing to admit as somebody who's, probably impacted a few people in their life positively, right? Like, I pay so little attention to me and give myself so little of just this gift For me, I'm thinking about this in the morning. For sure, I'm going to do it. I'm also thinking about before I go out and give a talk somewhere, just be able to find myself in a bathroom, just give myself the gift of it.
Yeah.
This is a gift you can give yourself.
Exactly.
That is so simple. That
Do you know why
deserve
your
it.
mind is popping off?
Yeah.
Because you actually understand so much about the brain.
Yeah.
Like I can see like your
I am.
neurons firing as you're connecting the dots and being like, this actually reshapes your RES.
Correct.
Like this is like something that is a tool.
Yeah.
Like one of the other things that I think that you're gonna really, really love about this is that I want to tell you about 2 other studies.
Okay.
Okay, because your audience, my audience, really into peak performance, into achieving goals, into, and I think when you're somebody that's driven like you and I are, you already said it. We have a negativity bias because we're so driven that we've developed a voice that's really hard on us. We don't see the 100 things that went right today. We see the one frickin' thing that didn't work.
Absolutely.
And then we look at that and we call that, of course, it's one of the reasons why we're successful. But I'm here to tell you, it's also why you're not as joyous as you could be as you're having this success.
Yes.
Because you are focused on the shit that's wrong instead of having micro celebrations and moments of joy and drip dopamine, as Dr. Amen says, throughout the day as you're seeing the things that are going right.
Yep. I think the robbing of that of yourself will eventually cause a frying and burnout. If you continue to take actions and get no dopamine hits for doing any of them, at one point you just reach the conclusion that it's not as worth doing as it used to be.
Yeah.
And this is one way to give yourself that hit. My brain is firing thinking about all the applications of this.
If I look at you, Mel, and I've been researching you for the past few days. This morning I watched your TED Talk.
Do you know that's like a 21-minute long panic attack?
I do, because I heard you talk about that. And I want to address that a little bit because I think it's interesting. So you do a TED Talk that certainly was uploaded in 2011 and is close to 30 million views now, right? So one of the most watched TED Talks of all time, I would imagine, probably top 10.
Yeah, I think it's top 20 anyway. Maybe longer, I don't know.
Okay, so you know, the outside world, much of society would look at that and go, oh, Mel Robbins is crushing it. She has just nailed a TED Talk and it's gone viral. Now, you're saying that you had a panic attack the whole time, right? So let's just think for a minute. You're getting the external success, but inside you are eating yourself up with worry, right? Then we fast forward, let's say 9, 10 years. April 2020, you are successful speaker, motivational coach, you know, best-selling author, and you're struggling with self-doubt in front of the mirror. So is there this slight clash here somewhere where actually you can be successful and not love yourself and be racked with self-doubt?
I think everybody is.
Yeah.
Success is not the source of self-love. In fact, most people who are successful or competitive or entrepreneurs, most people are chasing that success because they have married their self-worth with achievement. And I was the same.
Yeah.
And so right there.
Me too.
And so this is, by the way, evidence that you have a problem with self-rejection and with self-worth and with self-criticism, because you believe you are only worthy of love and you are only worthy of support if you have achieved the thing.
So someone's looking at you and thinking, man, I wish I was Mel Robbins, right? We'll talk about jealousy if we get to it later, but they might be jealous of you in a nice way. They might think, man, I wish I had a viral TED Talk like Mel. I wish I had multiple international bestsellers.
Great, write them.
Right?
Great, apply for one. Yeah. You can do it. If I can freaking do it, you can do it.
But they might also be thinking, well, that is success. You've had that even though you were racked with these problems on the inside.
Yeah.
And they may think, you know what, I'll take that. I'll take that success. And I think this comes to this wider societal point, which is we confuse sometimes success with happiness.
When you anchor your happiness to doing things, it's always out of your control. When you anchor success to the crap you achieve, It is always a moving target.
Yeah.
And so, it's a really hard concept to wrap your brain around because first of all, there's the research that shows, at least in Western countries, that, there's the baseline with money. 75 grand is the baseline, that when somebody makes 75 grand or more, there's this happiness thing that I can't remember how the exact study goes, but it makes a lot of sense because as somebody who could not pay groceries with 3 kids, as somebody who had liens on her house, as somebody who was getting the bankruptcy letters in the mail, as somebody who was unemployed during this whole thing, and whose husband was bouncing the payroll checks and was running from one restaurant to the other to hide from the collectors that were showing up. I know what it's like to live with the constant, relentless pressure that comes from having no money.
Yeah.
And until you can get yourself to a state where you can take a deep breath and you can pay the bill, and you can buy some groceries, and you can put some gas in the car, and the phone rings and it's not a collector, you are going to live a stressed out life because your basic needs are under threat.
Yeah.
And that is a horrendously triggering thing to live through. And we lived through it for several years. It was like that.
Yeah.
And so, there is a certain level of economic stability that has a direct impact on your happiness, on your safety as a person, and your ability to experience less stress. So I just wanted to be, responsible about that because I've freaking lived it. And, but I do think that, look, I use the 5-second rule. I certainly have found my calling. I love building stuff. I'm incredible as a businesswoman. I love the game of making money. I love being smart in deal making. I love content syndication. I'm super excited for NFTs and for how blockchain is going to change the role of being a creator. And so there's a part of this that's a real expression for me in terms of building a business. Yeah. And the 5-second rule helped me take action. And the 5-second rule made me very productive. And the 5-second rule had me go, no, I don't want to do a talk show. No, I don't want to do a talk show. No, I do not want to do a talk show. Why are we still talking? This is interesting. When you say no, people want you more. I wish I knew that a long time ago. But so I, for sure, use the 5-second rule to push myself to take the actions that have made me wildly successful. But that doesn't change the fact that I would look in the mirror and still see a person that I didn't like. And that as soon as the 5-second rule book came out, like I'll give you an example. So I write the High 5 Habit book. I'm practicing these tools, and I am also human. So when we get word 2 weeks before the book comes out that the big box stores like Target and Walmart in the United States are passing on my book because I'm not a known author, I get triggered. I punch the wall. I pour a gin martini, light up a joint. I call a bunch of friends and up a storm. I am literally reliving being left out at a sleepover in middle school. I've got this gigantic, ridiculous story that, I'm always left out. I'm never part of the group. Like there's this group of like real authors that are all friends that all promote, I have the whole thing. I'm human.
Put the record out, just press play.
Yes, exactly. I tend to be like angry, depressed kind of person, like breaking stuff. And then I wake up in the morning and I drag myself into the bathroom and I look at myself in the mirror and I have compassion. I'm like, you're right, that sucks. You are a known author. You deserve to have your work be in places where people can find it. It doesn't feel fair. And you know what? You're going to be okay. And so the high 5 becomes this, it's like a life jacket in the waves of life that keeps you above these waves so that they knock you over, they tumble you around, but then you climb back up, you reassure yourself. And I have this thing that is embodied in the high 5. So the high 5 is also wildly realistic, optimistic mindset. So part of what I am constantly doing, and I do this as a mother too. So we have a 23-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 16-year-old. And every day in everybody's life, there is stuff that happens that sucks. There are friends that go out to lunch that don't invite you. There are people that tell you no. There are schools you don't get into. There are apartments that somebody else gets. There's boyfriends and girlfriends that break up with you. There are people that have cooler clothes and nicer cars and parents who throw the parties. And, like it just, there's always going to be something that makes you feel like life is out to get you. Things aren't fair. People don't like you. It's just like a tweak, right? It's triggering your insecurity. And I have this saying that I developed that, again, it embodies this high five, which for me, also having run a marathon, the only reason why I made it across that finish line is because every stranger's high five said, I believe you can keep going. That's what the high five said to me. I see you, Mel. I see that you're limping. Keep going, girl. And so my mindset, whenever I'm working for something and I don't get it, and I feel the sting of rejection or disappointment, I always say to myself, and I say this to my kids on repeat too, I say, look, when you work hard, you're going to be rewarded. You have to believe that this moment is preparing you for something better, that you didn't get this thing because something better is coming. And, so there have been a couple of those. Like, for example, the High Five Habit audiobook is unreal. I mean, I record it. It is the #1 selling audiobook on all of Audible ever since it's been out in terms of the number of downloads in 1 month. Like, it's just destroying it. And I know you don't like that word, but it is destroying audiobook. It has been reported in the AP. It has been reported in all these places. Wow. It is in the charts, #1. And we are destroying it on the Amazon charts because people are reading it and loving it and sharing it. And I freaking love it because it tells me that the tool is spreading. Yeah. Because my books, like your books, are just vehicles for ideas to get out so then people can talk about them. And obviously, I put all this stuff online for free anyway. So if you can't afford the book, you're listening to this podcast. Like, you're going to get. But so the New York Times puts out a monthly audiobook list. I self-published the audiobook. And in the back of my mind, I was saying, don't get your hopes up, Mel. Don't get your hopes up. You're not a publisher. You're a self-published author. They're very fancy over there. And so the audiobook list came out for the month of October. I clearly destroyed it. Like, I'm clearly the audiobook. We don't even make it. Like, a complete and utter intentional snub. That was another night where I punched a wall and drank a couple martinis and lit up a joint and called a bunch of friends and felt really sorry for myself. And the next morning, I literally high-fived myself in the mirror. It took about 4 mornings of high-fiving myself to get over that sting because it felt personal. But I kept saying, something better's coming, something better's coming. Do you know, I figured out the better thing that's coming. Well, first of all, actual sales are better than a list. So let's just get that straight. But I'm human. We all want to be recognized. I was in the New York Times crossword puzzle today.
Today?
Yes. Isn't that not crazy?
For the high five.
It is the coolest thing.
That's cooler than being a New York Times bestseller, I reckon.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I think it is. It's a smaller club.
I'm literally getting off the train and my text messages are blowing up from mates from the United States. And they've screenshot this and it says literally a 3-word down on the New York Times. And it said, motivational speaker, Robbins. And it was me.
Oh.
And you know what it was that made me so just blown away is that I underestimate the fact that people know who I am. I think that I am a person who has really screwed up a lot. And for a very long time, I have lived inside a body that was racked with anxiety and fight or flight and doubt and judgment. And it has been really hard to live in this body. Yes, I've been high functioning. Yes, I have still gotten okay grades. I've gone to great schools. I've had friends. I've been married for 25 years, but it has been a real bitch to live with this much unedgedness, this much stress, this much self-imposed condemnation, this constant, relentless drumbeat of what's wrong and someone's mad at me and I've screwed up again, and just constantly feeling like nobody likes me and I can never do it right and it's all never going to work, and just this grinding feeling that when I finally started to attack the anxiety and understand it, when I finally started dealing with the childhood trauma that created a dysregulated nervous system in the first place, when I finally understood what was going on and came face to face with the woman in the mirror, and I started getting help and finding a new way, because I didn't want to continue living a life where I felt that stressed out and that anxious and that worried, and where the constant just noise in my head was negative. Now, through the 5-second rule, through EMDR and psychedelic guided therapy, through traditional talk therapy, through the high five habit and practicing that since April of 2020, I have a totally different experience of being alive. And if I can save anybody the headaches, the heartaches, the struggles that I have been through, that I now realize that you have very simple tools at your disposal that you can use to move the needle on the things that are making you feel anxious and stressed and unhappy and just constantly on edge, that you can come back home inside yourself and reconnect with your true nature. You know, if you think about our true nature, we're wired for love. We're wired for connection. We're born accepting ourselves. Like when a 4-year-old sees a mirror, they don't back up and say, God, my thighs are fat, and look at that nose and my hair. No, they like are, woo, they're twirling. They love themselves. That's your true nature.
Yeah.
That's why a high five from a stranger feels amazing, because it cuts down to the core of who you really are. A person who deserves to be seen, a person who deserves to be celebrated. And it begins with you.
Yeah, it's so powerful, Mel. As you were describing your different experience of life now, you're still successful as you were, but you experience it differently. There's a calmness, there's a groundedness, I guess, with it, is what I hear. And it reminds me of a phrase that my friend Pippa Grange, she's a psychologist. She used to help the England football team a few years ago. And she has this term, winning shallow or winning deep. And it really epitomizes that. She's dealt with so many. Wow. She's brilliant. And it's such a great phrase, because she's dealt with, elite Premier League footballers. And, they've been walking up the steps to win the trophy. And on the inside, they're feeling nothing. They thought from a young age, from the age of 8, I'll keep training, I'll get for a big club, we'll get into the cup, we'll win it. Because they thought, like many overachievers, that actually winning that medal, getting that number, getting that job, getting the house, getting the car would make them happy. But it doesn't, because it's an inside job. And that's where I think this high five habit, it's not going to change everything, but it makes everything much easier. You've still had therapy. Like, I feel someone who, let's say they've got childhood trauma.
Yeah, I do. Everybody does.
And who doesn't, really?
Yeah, everybody does, yeah.
On some level. And it's too hard for them to even address it and actually go and see someone. Well, the high five habit, I think, is your way in.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You start doing that.
Yes.
I think a few weeks down the line, you're going to be picking up the phone to someone and making an appointment.
Because you realize you deserve it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you, when you're saying, when things didn't go to plan on this book launch, and I know all about that kind of stuff, that drink you poured yourself and that moan to your friends, that was one night, right? It seems to me like that high five habit, it just puts a flag in the sand and says, okay, you know what? We did that, but today's a new day. And today I see myself, I'm going to get on with it now.
Yeah, it's like the way that a team shakes off a bad play and resets the game for themselves. And there's interesting research about that. In chapter 2, as you know, it's where all the research is. People love hearing about the study with NBA teams in the United States. So researchers at Berkeley wondered, are there habits in the preseason of the Professional Basketball League in the United States, habits in the preseason that can predict what teams are going to have a winning record? And in fact, there are.
Yeah.
And the habit in the preseason that determines what teams are going to have the winningest records are the number of pats on the back, fist bumps, and high fives that team members give one another. And, it seems so implausible that the Wall Street Journal in 2011 did an independent study where they paid people to watch tapes and count it.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's true. And it's also true that the teams that had the least number of high fives, pats on the back, and fist bumps during the preseason had the worst records. Why? Well, you've already said it. When you high five somebody, you're building trust and partnership. You're in it together. When you withhold those gestures, you're selfish, you're judgmental, you're in it for yourself. And one of the things that's helping me now feel like I'm winning deep is the fact that I know that I'm in partnership with myself. And when you know you can count on yourself, you know that anything that happens, even a massive tragedy, even the biggest heartbreak or betrayal of your life, you know that you will, like those waves of life, come out the other side.
Yeah.
That it will suck for a period, but you know that you have within you the ability to get through it. And I think that's where my kind of grounded, deep winning sense comes from.
That takes me to the very last question, which I have for you today. I could spend all 8 hours of the day with you, obviously. And it's so interesting because I usually don't like to pre-plan questions for people. I like to feel it. But this one I did pre-plan. And the reason why I did plan this one is because I think a lot of people neglect this. Now, in fitness and what I do for most of my career, I try to get people to a state of sustainability, meaning regardless of your weight, what are you going to do when you get there? Because everybody wants to lose the weight, but what do you do when you get there? Do you even know what to do? Because if you're going to get there and we're going to still play the yo-yo game, and like I say, the yo-yo is a kid's game. We're not playing that in the office, right? So what happens when someone gets to the point and they're like, Mel, I have high-fived my way to greatness. How do they sustain the feeling of greatness when it comes to the high-five habit?
So this is beautiful. So at the moment in my life when I stumbled into this high five by mistake, Sean, I had made more money than I ever thought I would. I had achieved more impact than I believed possible. I was about to celebrate 25 years of marriage, and I have 3 healthy kids and a beautiful life. And I had no ability to feel content or joy or acceptance for myself. I didn't know how to do that. I knew that we need to take care of ourselves and love ourselves and put ourselves first. I didn't actually understand what it meant or how to do it. I was my own worst critic. It didn't matter. I've never been worried about the haters or bothered by criticism, because the kind of stuff that strangers say to me, That's nothing compared to the shit I say to myself. Like, geez, try a little harder if you want me to feel bad.
Right.
So what I can tell you, and you said it there, you already said it, Sean, is you said everybody's chasing the number on the scale or the size of the pants they want to wear. Because you think when you achieve that thing, you will be happy, or you will love yourself, or you will be able to finally be worth all of the things in life that you want. That somehow that weight outside of you proves something, right? And what I've come to profoundly realize is that the secret to everything, the secret to greatness for sure, is being able to stand exactly where you are in this moment right now. And to see somebody who is doing their best and who is so worthy of love and celebration, and to love and support yourself through life, every step, every moment, every single day. To me, when you start to do that, that is the heart of the high five habit. It's the heart of high-fiving your heart, which is basically supporting yourself through a moment of stress or anxiety or panic, soothing yourself, seeing yourself, knowing your needs. When you can do that, first of all, you're going to feel more inspired and empowered because you're a person who's worthy of feeling healthy and vibrant. So you'll feel empowered and inspired to do the work versus dragging yourself, to turn on Shaun T. You know why exercise is hard? Is because deep down, you have a belief that you don't deserve to feel good. You have a belief that you're not worthy of all this. And you have a belief that it's not going to work out anyway. And I'm here to tell you that if you start looking yourself in the mirror every morning and raising your hand in celebration and support, you will have already achieved the thing that you think the number on the scale is going to give you. Yes, you will feel proud of yourself when you achieve those things. But losing weight or getting in shape doesn't make you worthy of love. You are worthy of love and support because you're breathing. You are worthy of love and support because of everything that you've survived and because you're still waking up every day and doing your best to do a little bit better. That's what makes you worthy of support, your existence. And when you start to celebrate those little things, just breathing, just the fact that you brushed your teeth, that you're standing here with yourself, that life's been hard, you'll start to accumulate these tiny little wins that creates a sense of momentum. I mean, imagine sending yourself into your day with a sense of momentum and knowing you got your own back. We had somebody write to us, Sean, who was in a domestic violence shelter. And she, said, I've had a lifetime of trauma. I've just lost everything. I've got nothing. And it's going to take a tremendous amount of time and work to rebuild my life. And she said, but you know what this high five habit is teaching me every morning? I still have me. I can have my own back and I can face no matter what happens today. And when you have that sense, you can climb any mountain and you can start to feel good about you, the human being. Instead of chasing it, you will be it. That's how you achieve greatness.
Mel, I love you so much. Thank you so much. Oh.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.